Hey guys, retired at 40. The time is here. I've done 30 batches and I need to do my 30 batch maintenance on my vacuum pump. If you've hit 30 batches and you have this older style pump, or even if you have the newer style pump, stick around, we're going to show you how to do this. Now I've heard from some people that the newer style Harvestright pump does not require the 30 batch maintenance. And as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't trust that. Any kind of oil-based pump like this, any kind of maintenance that you can do is always going to extend the longevity of it, and it's always going to gather up that crud inside, and it always can help it by cleaning that out. So the first thing we need to do is separate the pump from the machine. So there's two fittings. There's a brass fitting down here that's actually going into the pump. There is a threaded fitting, just this section, that is usually, it turns freely. This is usually in there pretty good, so I'm going to take this part off. If you're using a wrench like this, I would probably use some kind of rubber or some kind of thing to grasp around so you don't tear up this brass piece. Okay, so we're loose from the machine, loose from the hose. Just unplug your vacuum pump. And I would probably recommend taking it outside or some kind of a workshop or something, because I've got a feeling this is going to make a pretty big mess. Oh yeah, and you're going to want to make sure that you empty this before you take it outside, because every drop of oil that comes out of here is one more drop that's not going to go onto your floor. So while you're waiting for this to drip dry, you can find the Allen key that you need. It's a 5/16, and it is actually SAE size because it is made in America, surprisingly. Alright, so we're going to loosen up these 6 screws. There's 2 on each side. There's 2 on the bottom. If you have the correct size Allen key that you can put into an impact drill or a regular drill, it'll really speed up the process, but it's actually not too bad if you just do it by hand. Now all these are loose, so we're going to take a mallet, a rubber mallet, or something soft that you can just kind of tap on here. There's going to be a seal behind here, and you don't want to ruin that rubber seal. So you want to be real gentle. Alright, so now that that's off, you can really see how much crap this thing holds. All this debris and rust and stuff is not good for all these moving parts. So you can definitely see why you want to get all that stuff out. And once again, that's why I don't think that them saying the new pump doesn't need this, I can't imagine how it would be any different. Anything that has oil in it is always going to collect some kind of gunk that's going to jam up stuff. It's going to drastically reduce the time that those parts are going to last. Okay, so here's your rubber seal that sits around there. You're going to want to take that off. Take it off very gently. It's somewhat delicate, and you want to keep that rubber so it's pliable. If that dries out, it gets pretty bad. I would probably not put any kind of chemicals on this. I would clean it off with maybe soap and water or just even a towel. So I would set that aside. Okay, the next thing you're going to want is carb and choke cleaner, or you can also use brake cleaner. Brake cleaner is going to be a little bit more harsh, but what this is going to do is it's going to separate all that goo, and it's going to instantly clean up all of those surfaces. I'm going to let that first spray just sit on that goop for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back out and hit it again. Alright, I've hit this twice with carb cleaner now, and then I just used an old brush to kind of help loosen up some of that stuff. But then if you get in there with a paper towel and just get the rest of it, if you use brake cleaner, it might get a little bit more of this. But like I said, it is a little bit harsh, so make sure that you use it in a well-ventilated area, because it's pretty tough to breathe in. Not good for you. So you can see on the rest of this pump that this housing right here is really rusted. And I've probably run, at this point, probably 130 to 150 cycles through this machine, and metal's worst enemy, or steel's worst enemy, is water, and obviously there's a lot of water because you're pulling moisture out of food. I have seen people rig these up with a diesel fuel filter, and for those of you that don't know, diesel fuel tends to have quite a bit of water in it, so those filters are meant to separate the water from the oil or the fuel. So if you could rig up some kind of diesel fuel filter that would cycle the oil through, it would probably keep a lot of the water out of your oil and prevent you from having to do these maintenance cycles at least as frequently. So depending on how thorough you want to be with this cleaning, you can also get onto this vacuum pump, and you can either take a razor blade or you can take a wire brush and just kind of gently clean all of this off. My pump is definitely showing its age. It's had lots and lots of cycles through it, and some of this stuff is starting to become kind of more permanent. It's getting harder to clean off. But the more thorough you make your cleaning, the longer your life is going to be of your pump. To get to the back of this pump, you can actually take this flap off. There's one Allen bolt back there. It's the same size as these others are. Alright, we're relatively clean here. One of the big complaints of this pump was that it rusted so quickly. Why they did not make all of this stuff stainless steel or aluminum, I'm not sure. But I'm not sure if they've improved that on the new pump. I would imagine that that was probably a big gripe, and that is why they changed the pump to their own pump that they branded. I'd love to hear your comments on it. Anyone who has the new pump and who has done a maintenance on it, I'd love to hear what the inside of it looks like for them in comparison to the old pump. Alright, last thing before we get this ring on, just make sure that this channel right here is just clean as it can be from debris and just gunk, and then we're going to put the ring on. Alright, this next part is going to be the most tricky, and that's getting this seal to sit back into this channel long enough to get the cover back on. So one way that will help out is I like to take just a high quality oil and fill this channel. And you want to keep oil on this seal anyway because it keeps it pliable and it helps it actually seal. So you want to cover the seal just in oil too. Just kind of put it like that. If you ever change oil in a car, it's similar to that on the oil filter. It just helps keep that seal going. But just cover that seal both sides with oil. Spread it around with your fingers. And then we're going to set that seal back into the channel. And it will only fit in one way. And with that oil in there, it kind of helps hold the that rubber seal in. Then we're going to set our clean cover back on. Put our screws back in and tighten it up. Okay, so when we put our screws back in, you're going to want to put them in even pressure all the way around. You don't want to wrench on one. You want to kind of just tighten it down just so it's just pulling it down, and then slowly do that all the way around. You want to keep even pressure on all of them, and that way that seal kind of it attaches itself with the same pressure all the way around until it's all completely tight. Okay, now that these are all hand tight, I'm just going to do one small turn on each of them, maybe about a quarter of a turn, and then go around once more with your final tightening turn. Alright, now that we're all tightened back up, we can attach our hose again. This should have a good rubber seal on the inside of here. You can, if your seal gets bad, you can either go to the hardware store and get a seal that will replace that, or you can put Teflon tape or thread sealant onto this fitting here, or you can use a pipe dope, similar to like what you would use for iron pipe for plumbing, or for copper fixtures or brass fixtures. So our last thing to do is just fill it back up with oil so we're ready for our next batch. Obviously the water is very damaging to the pump, as you have seen from all the rust and just junk inside of the pump. One good way to keep water out of your oil, and once you get the oil into a container like this, stick it in the freezer, because the water will freeze and the oil will not, and when you get the water frozen, you can just pour the oil out and it will keep the water separate from the oil. So that's our 30 cycle maintenance. If you have any helpful tips or questions or comments, feel free to get a hold of me in the comments section. I always look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.